So good morning and a very warm welcome to the India Day at the UNGA, a day that we have been curating now for a number of years. This is the third year in a row that we are going to be hosting this. And let me first acknowledge and thank Ambassador Binaya Pradhan, the Consul General of India to New York, for having us and hosting us in this fabulous venue. There's a history, so please talk to him during the break. This was India's first consulate that was built, and this is a free, independent India invested in this as its first global outpost, and therefore it has significance in our journey, international engagement journey. So do catch up with the Consul General and learn about the tidbits and history associated with this building. It's on a heritage street, so that street itself is a heritage street. So something to do during the breaks if you are not going to be busy having tea and catching up with others. Okay, so the flow of the event today. We have a morning session where we are going to hear from the two people who have made this possible, the ambassador who I just introduced, and my colleague B. Srinivasan, who is member of the board of the Observer Research Foundation, and they are both going to speak to us. We are then going to launch our publication. I think these are going to be made available to all of you, and we're going to do a short teaser video and then launch it. And thereafter, we are going to engage in 4 big questions that all of us must grapple with in the days ahead. We have signed a pact for the future, and there are 2 elements to it. One, a pact, and that's in this world where pacts are impossible, that itself is a deliverable. In some sense, we have agreed as a global community to a set of actions. Some would argue that they are watered down, but I would say this is the beginning of that agreement, and we can add ambition to it in the days ahead. But the second is the transformation of global governance, which is the embedded theme within that pact. And here, I think one of the most important questions of our time is going to be that post the 2030 expiry date of the SDGs, what comes next? And I call them the NDGs, the Next Development Goals, whatever may be the name that anyone may devise for them. But the Next Development Goals are going to be vital post-2030 because clearly we are going to fall short as a global community, and we have to start now planning for that next phase of pursuing development as a global aspiration. And here we want to really ask ourselves who should be describing those goals, what should be the frameworks that will help us attain the goals, and who would be the actors best placed to support the achievement of these goals. And in that sense, the publication that we are going to release today talks about what happens post-2030 and who should be on the table, what should be on the menu, and who should be paying the bills. And I think in that sense, this is the development meal that we really need to be thinking about in the days ahead. So without further ado, let me thank you once again for joining us this morning, and let me first invite Ambassador Binaya Pradhan, Consul General of India to New York, to speak to us. So, the mic is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Saran. Mr. Samir Saran, President of ORF, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning. On behalf of the Consulate, let me welcome each one of you to this historical building. I'm happy that you are hosting the India Day on the margins of UNGA, and like Mr. Saran said, discussing the 4 big questions. I was going through the 4 big questions, and I thought as if you are discussing about different models of development for the global south, and where India would fit in, where Indian experience and Indian models would fit in there. ORF, of course, has been, been a champion of talking about the problems of Global South. You have been hosting the leaders from Global South. You are hosting the events in, different parts of the Global South. I'm familiar with the Cape Town Conversation or, the Kigali Dialogue, or I think you did something called Sci-Fi Africa. So these are forums where you are, raising the issues which are pertinent for the Global South. Today, I'll briefly speak about my recent experience of working in Tanzania as Indian High Commissioner, where, I would say that Tanzania is a case study of the challenges Global South faces and how the Indian model of growth and development is being, adopted by a country here in the case Tanzania. So to mention few challenges which are all very well known, but at the cost of reputation, the challenges that the people and the government of Tanzania are facing, which are most of the time not their own creation, are challenges like, for example, unaffordable energy and food prices thanks to the Ukraine conflict, high security expenses thanks to insurgency, not within their country, but in the neighborhood, in Mozambique and DR Congo, impact of the climate change, which is affecting their agriculture and animal husbandry, high cost of skilling their people, developing infrastructure, digitalization, which they are finding unbearable. And then there are more complex challenges. Before they could comprehend what is industrial revolution, third industrial revolution, now they're dealing with industrial revolution 4.0, and they are trying to understand how artificial intelligence is going to impact their lives. And they're not too sure whether the new technologies are coming with solutions or they're, offering new barriers. For example, green transition. In absence of climate finance, people in Tanzania are wondering whether the so-called green policy is merely protectionism in a new name. So, combined to all the challenges, then there is an endemic problem of absence of any kind of foreign private investment. So eventually they depend on loan, assistance, aid, and that ultimately leads to debt stress and the associated problem of choosing side, whether you belong to this club or the other club. So these countries have remained at the receiving end of the global regimes decided by powerful countries and organizations. They don't have wherewithal to deal with many of them, whether it is ESG norms or whether the norms set by international maritime organizations or civil aviation organizations. And they, of course, receive a lot of ideas from the development partners, often as solutions, but all the time with conditions which are politically very expensive and hence unimplementable. So, in some countries in Africa, then you add civil war, military dictatorship, and epidemics, so that takes the challenges to a whole new dimension. But in this backdrop in Tanzania, I saw how they are adopting several of the Indian models of growth and development and how they're finding them, as solutions. Like India, they have a decentralized portable water project. They're providing portable drinking water to their people. Government of India is providing $1 billion of development assistance for that without any conditionalities. So people who are from India, it's more like Jal Jeevan Mission, internationalized format. And Indian capacity building programs, the biggest, that any country is doing in Tanzania is hugely popular, training people to deal with different developmental issues and challenges. They are, of course, interested in the Indian digital public infrastructure, in our unique ID, and the model of dispersing government benefits without leakages. They studied Indian clean cooking initiative like Ujjwala or using the city gas for transportation as more cost effective. Mind you, only 4% people in Tanzania use clean cooking fuel. 2% people use electricity, 2% people use LPG. Remaining 96% people use charcoal and firewood. So that's the magnitude of the problem there. And Indian education and healthcare is seen as the only cost-effective model that they can replicate. And it's not a coincidence that the first IIT outside India is now functional in Tanzania. Since last year, this year, we're going for the second batch of undergrad and postgrad students. So I'm sure it's not only Tanzania which is finding Indian models replicable. There are many other African countries. I have seen them in Uganda, I've seen them in Kenya, I've seen them in Mozambique, Malawi, where they are adopting Indian models of capacity development, the Indian models of IT solutions. So to sum up, the general feeling is that the divide between the global south and the developed global north will take several decades to be breached. That's the best case scenario. And the hope is that the South-South cooperation would trigger a more productive North-South and triangular cooperation. And probably South-South cooperation would bring locally developed technology, solutions like Indian solutions, and involvement of non-governmental stakeholders to help the global South. The hope, finally, is that countries like India, becoming the voice of global South, could help them and make their voice heard. So I'll conclude here. I'm sure today's conversation will add value to this whole discussion. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Saran, for bringing India Day celebration here to the Indian Consulate and making us part of it. Thank you very much.
May I now invite B. Srinivasan, member of the board of the ORF, to deliver the opening remarks on behalf of the organizers. Srini, the mic is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Samir. Thank you, Ambassador Pradhan. It's quite fascinating to listen to what you spoke about the African experience, and I'm sure it's not an isolated experience for most of the world, actually looking for meaningful models that have worked in other parts of global south, that is, can be contextualized, that can actually be implemented, that actually does not take the same amount of resources that the global north would need to actually change things very dramatically in an accelerated manner. And I'm very grateful that, actually you spoke about Indian models and being welcome in other parts of the world. Thank you, Ambassador Pradhan, also for hosting the India Day at this most beautiful India House venue. I know it's a historical venue and it's beautiful setting, and it can't be better actually to talk about opportunities of how the global south can actually take the lead in meeting at least a substantial part of SDG. As Samir said, I don't think we are going to reach there. As the UN Secretary General said, the world gets a failure grade yesterday. He said 17% is where we are today. It's quite. One way is to lament that we are at 17. The other way is to say that how do we actually reach 83 in 6 years? And some of us have been students, so we are used to last-minute preparations, last-minute work, speed reading and smart reading and preparing for the exams and things like that. If there are solutions that have really worked in parts of the global south, I think one part can be actually to see how we can take these solutions that have worked in global south. For example, India actually has created digital public infrastructure on a scale that most Indians are astounded. Leave alone the other people. That has actually been the bedrock of improved governance, improved measurements, improved outcomes, including in education, financial inclusion, digital inclusion, and you can go on and on. We've used technology extremely well in India. And I think, how do we actually look at models for the next 6 years that have worked in some parts of the world in the global south, take them to see, if not at least a 90% A plus kind of a grade, at least, we'll reach about 65, 70% a good enough grade for the world. I think should be a goal that we should all set ourselves. I don't want to lament saying that only 17 now, but I think, we should actually look at how do we make this smarter. From 17 to 70 could be a good journey, at least as a starting point. The second part is, while 2030 knew, it was going to be not just the sustainable development goals, also we have the climate crisis. We actually have to, that's the second large issue that actually would face. One is poverty, the second is climate crisis. I think that also, the world really have to wake up and possibly look at, again, extraordinarily sustainable large projects that most of the global south is doing. The reason why I bring back to India is why India can actually be a good model for most people is all of us know that every sixth human being in the world is an Indian. But I think more importantly, every fourth young person in the world is an Indian, right? And I think it's the youthful energy who come with no legacy of saying we have tried and it didn't work and things like that. They come with a completely different set of ideas, very innovative, very creative in their problem-solving models, much better than what I did in college in problem-solving. I think, this younger generation possibly are used to a very different world of using technology to solve problems. And I think, Indians have shown that they've been very creative, very innovative in creating solutions, enterprises, addressing some of the most difficult challenges that we have had over the last several decades. So I think, I would bet on Indian youth actually coming up with the really remarkable ideas. Of course, it's not just a startup culture in terms of creating business models, but also developmental models in terms of actually solving some of the most difficult challenges of access to healthcare, access to education. I think, I'm betting my money, whatever I have, on some of the best models of working for the global south coming out of Indian youth's creativity and innovative minds. I'm a parent, so I'm also betting on my own children to actually create some of this. So it's. I also read the Sustainable Development Goals report. It was very, very heartwarming to see that countries in Southeast Asia and South Asia are actually above the global average. They've done better than other part of the world. So which again proves my point, saying that, South Asia, including India, India obviously is the most populous nation. If you actually do well for some of these large countries, I think, you can actually export model like Ambassador Pradhan was talking about Tanzania, using some of this. I think it's a good model for cooperation between the global south that most countries today are willing to share their models that have worked, and they're not looking at it as a IP or a closed thing. In development world, that's the best thing is there is no IP. If it is a model has worked, you can actually see how we can contextualize, you can actually make it relevant to that region and see how we can use the same kind of a model to solve. So I think, I mean, it's a good thing that, I mean, we are seeing significant amount of progress that India has made in making digital public infrastructure truly come alive in solving some of the most difficult challenges that we've had. I mean, today, I think, I mean, our direct benefit transfers cut down leakages by whatever significant percentage. I don't want to go to the number, but it's really cut down leakages. So it's targeted. It actually goes to the people that it is intended for, without a large amount of chain of people who are doing a lot of paperwork and all that stuff. So I think there are models that have worked in India. I mean, we're very, very proud that, I mean, there are some models that actually are finding traction in Africa, as Ambassador Pradhan said, whether it's Tanzania, Uganda, Kenya, and other parts of the world as well. And I'm sure there are equally interesting models that are actually working in Cambodia, Vietnam, Thailand, and Philippines, which also would find some amount of relevance for other countries, including India, to actually adapt in this. And I'm optimist, I'm hopeful that we will make the journey from 17 to 70 plus in the next 6 years. And it won't be such a sad case that as we are today, as we are lamenting today. And I just wanted to actually look at, I mean, Samir was right in saying that 2024 is a good time to actually start thinking about the NDG. I think it should be aspirational development goals. I don't think it should be just a sustainable one, because a large part of the young population wants much more than what we are actually setting as goals. They want even higher goals. One of the things that I was actually, today morning, New York Times was reading, saying that the whole poverty line that we have drawn at $2 is possibly irrelevant, because even with $2, a fairly large part of even the Western Hemisphere continues to be poor. So we have to really look at newer and newer models, and I believe that the young people of the world and young people of India, anyway, 25% of the young people in India, which India will continue to be very young at heart, young in action, would solve some of the most difficult challenges that we have been unable to solve as a community in the last few decades. Without much ado, I'll request Samir to take over for the next panel. And thank you very much for all your time and taking the time to come to what would be some really excellent discussions today. Thank you.
Good, so now we are going to have a short teaser for the publication that we are releasing, and can I request my colleagues to play that video?
As the UNGA deliberates at the summit of the future and we strive towards achieving the UN Sustainable Development Goals, the world requires bold objectives post-2030 for accelerated progress. Building a resilient future beyond 2030 requires addressing the key global challenges. This India Day, we come together to commit to new ideas and innovative solutions to respond to the challenges and opportunities of today and tomorrow. Knowledge sharing is key to creating a resilient, inclusive and sustainable world. India and the Global South's progress on the SDGs and innovations has the potential to lead the development story for the world. And this forms the foundation of the ideas presented in The Next Frontier, charting the contours of the post-2030 development agenda. This publication highlights insights in 27 essays from global experts on strategies for driving inclusive transformation, fostering resilient progress, and advancing sustainable development. These essays are a call to action and a roadmap to guide us towards crafting a sustainable and inclusive future together. This publication is a collaborative effort by Reliance Foundation, Observer Research Foundation, and the United Nations India.
So let me congratulate the editors and the authors for contributing to this. We have one of the editors with us today, and I'll do the very typical Indian thing and invite the editor on stage and invite the Consul General on stage as well with B. Srinivasan for a quick photograph with the publication, and then we'll move to the business end this morning. So Vinita, can I request you to come on stage, who's edited this? Please join me in applauding Vinita for her efforts. Thank you. Thank you.